I'm going to tell you something right now that's going to stay with you for the rest of the day. Every single thing you're currently stressed about, the career you're trying to build, the relationship you're trying to figure out, the body you're trying to fix, the money you're trying to make, the person you're trying to become, every single one of those things is being shaped right now by a set of invisible beliefs you've never examined. Beliefs you didn't choose. Beliefs you absorbed from your parents, your culture, your school, your feed. Beliefs that feel like truth because you've never held them up to the light and asked, wait, who told me this? And were they right? I know people who spend the entirety of their 20s operating on beliefs that weren't theirs. They were inherited software, and that inherited software cost them years, not months, years. Years of chasing things they didn't actually want, years of avoiding things they desperately needed, years of measuring their life against a scorecard that they didn't build, playing a game they never agreed to enter, and wondering why winning didn't feel like winning. Today I'm going to give you 10 truths that I and others have had to learn the hard way. Some of them through failure, some of them through pain, some through sitting in rooms with people who were decades ahead of you and hearing them say one sentence that rearranged how I saw everything. These are not the obvious things. I'm not going to tell you to work hard or believe in yourself or start investing early. You've heard that. Everyone's heard that. And if hearing it was enough, you'd already be doing it. These are the things no one says, the things that sound wrong the first time you hear them and then keep you up at night because you realize they might be the truest things anyone's ever told you. 10 truths, 30 minutes, and I'll tell you right now, number 7 is the one that would have saved me the most pain, and it's the one you're going to resist the hardest. Stay for it. Let's go. Truth number 1. The things you're most proud of avoiding are probably the things you most need to do. Here's what nobody tells you about your 20s. You will become extraordinarily skilled at avoiding the things that scare you, and you will disguise that avoidance as something noble. You won't call it avoidance. You'll call it waiting for the right time. You'll call it doing more research. You'll call it being strategic. You'll call it not rushing into things. You'll build an elaborate, intelligent-sounding vocabulary around the simple act of not doing the thing that frightens you. And because you're smart, and you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this, your rationalizations will be convincing. Convincing enough to fool everyone, including yourself. I did this for years. I told myself I was being thoughtful, careful, measured, sensible. What I was actually being was terrified. And the terror was wearing a very sophisticated outfit. Here's the science that cracked this open for me. Dr. Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia ran a study where participants were left alone in a room with nothing but their thoughts and a button that would deliver a mild electric shock. They'd already tried the shock and said they hated it, said they'd pay money to avoid it. And yet when left alone with nothing but their own mind, 67% of men and 25% of women chose to shock themselves rather than sit alone with their thoughts. Think about that again. People preferred physical pain to being alone with what was in their head. That's not a fun experiment. That's a diagnosis of the human condition. We will do almost anything, including hurt ourselves, to avoid confronting what's actually going on inside us. And in your 20s, the version of the electric shock is busyness, scrolling, planning without executing, consuming content about doing the thing instead of doing the thing. You're pressing the button over and over and calling it preparation. The Bhagavad Gita has a line that hit me like a truck when I first read it. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. That's not a motivational quote. That's a warning. The thing you're avoiding is almost always the thing that's actually yours. The thing that's aligned with who you really are. And you're avoiding it precisely because it's yours. Because doing it would mean stepping out from behind the mask of the person you've been pretending to be and standing in the open as the person you actually are. That's terrifying. Do it anyway. Your 20s will end, the right time will never come, and the only thing worse than failing at the thing you need to do is succeeding at the thing you don't want to do. Truth 2. You don't actually know what you want, you know what you were told to want. This one is going to sting, but you need to hear it. Most of what you're chasing right now, the job title, the relationship milestone, the body, the lifestyle, you didn't choose. You absorbed it. It was handed to you by a combination of parental expectations, cultural programming, social media reinforcement, and peer comparison. And because it was installed so early and reinforced so often, it doesn't feel installed. It feels like desire. It feels like ambition. It feels like what I've always wanted. But here's a question that will break the illusion. If no one would ever know, if there were no Instagram, no family dinners, no friends to impress, no metric to hit, would you still want this? If you could never tell anyone about your achievement, would you still pursue it? If the answer is no, you don't want the thing, you want the reaction, you want the status, you want the proof, and proof is not purpose. Proof is performance. Dr. Kenan Sheldon at the University of Missouri has studied what he calls self-concordance, the degree to which your goals align with your authentic interests and values versus external pressures and internalized expectations. His research spanning decades consistently shows that people who pursue self-concordant goals they choose from genuine internal motivation, are significantly more likely to achieve them. And critically, when they do achieve them, they actually feel fulfilled. It's not about not having goals. It's not about not being ambitious. It's about it being aligned. People who pursue non-concordant goals absorbed from outside, achieve them at lower rates. And even when they do succeed, the success feels hollow, empty. You think, is this it? That's the sound of a non-concordant goal arriving at its destination. The Taoist tradition calls this living in Te, your authentic nature, your intrinsic power. The Tao Te Ching says, when you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you. This isn't passivity. It's the most radical act of your 20s, to stop long enough to separate what you actually want from what you were programmed to want, and to have the courage to pursue the first one, even if the second one looks better on paper. Do the audit. Seriously, take every major goal you're currently pursuing and ask, if no one would ever know I achieved this, would I still want it? The ones where the answer is yes are your real goals. The ones where the answer is no are someone else's goals wearing your face. Let them go. They were never yours. Truth number 3. The person you're pretending to be is costing you everything the person you actually are could have. This is the one that will save your relationships, your career, and your mental health if you let it. At some point in our life, we're all performing. In conversations, in meetings, on dates, in friendships, online, in the mirror. You have constructed a version of yourself, let's call it the approved version, and you present that version to the world because at some point, probably very early in our lives, we learned that the real version wasn't safe to show. Maybe the real version of you was too emotional for your parents and you learned to mask it. Maybe the real version of you had opinions that friends shut down, so you learned to agree. Maybe the real version of you wanted things that people didn't think were realistic, so you learned to want smaller. Maybe the real version was rejected, really rejected, in the way only a child can be, and you built the approved version as armor. The armor worked. It kept you safe. It got you accepted. It got you through school and into jobs and past first dates. But here's what nobody told you about the armor. It doesn't just keep the bad things out. It keeps everything out, including the connection, the recognition, the love, and the opportunities that can only reach you if people are interacting with the real you instead of the performance. Dr. Brené Brown spent over 2 decades researching vulnerability and connection, and her data leads to one conclusion that most people intellectually accept and behaviorally ignore. Genuine connection is impossible without vulnerability. The approved version of you cannot form deep connections because deep connection requires being seen. Not being seen performing, being seen. Here's the paradox that can ruin your 20s. The thing you think will get you rejected, your real self, your real thoughts, your real desires, your real weirdness, is actually the thing that creates belonging. And the thing you think keeps you safe, the performance, the mask, the approved version, is the thing that guarantees loneliness. Because even when people accept the approved version, it never satisfies you. Because you know somewhere deep down that they didn't accept you. They accepted the mask. And being loved for a mask you're wearing is the loneliest kind of love there is. In the Zen tradition, there's a concept called Shoshin, beginner's mind. It means approaching life without pretense, without the need to appear as an expert, without the armor of having it all figured out. The master said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. Your approved version is the expert. It knows exactly how to behave, what to say, how to be acceptable. And in that expertise, it has eliminated the possibility of being surprised, of being discovered, of being genuinely known. Take off the armor. Not all at once, not with everyone, but start. Start with one person you trust. Show them one thing about you that isn't approved. And watch what happens. What usually happens is the opposite of what you feared. They exhale, they lean in, and they say, me too, because everyone's wearing armor. And the person who takes theirs off first gives everyone else permission to breathe. Truth 4, discipline is not what you think it is. It's the art of disappointing the wrong things. Every piece of advice about discipline makes the same mistake. It frames discipline as the ability to force yourself to do hard things, to override your desires, to push through resistance with willpower, as if discipline is a battle between the good you and the lazy you, and success goes to whoever grits their teeth the hardest. That model doesn't work. And it's the reason most people's relationship with discipline is an exhaustion cycle of motivation, effort, collapse, guilt, and restart. Here's a reframe that changed everything for me. I didn't hear it from a productivity expert. I actually heard it from a monk. Discipline is not the ability to say yes to hard things. Discipline is the ability to say no to easy things. And more specifically, discipline is the art of disappointing the things that don't matter so that you can show up fully for the things that do. Every day you have a finite amount of energy, attention, and willpower. This is not a metaphor. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every distraction you fight draws from the same tank. The person who spends their morning resisting the snooze button, deciding what to wear, answering non-urgent emails, scrolling through notifications, and navigating a chaotic environment arrives in their most important work with an empty tank. They didn't lack discipline. They spent it all on things that don't matter. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote something 2,000 years ago that reads like it was targeted at our lives right now. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. But when it was wasted in heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we're forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing. You don't have a discipline problem. You have an allocation problem. You're investing your best resources, your morning energy, your deepest focus, your most creative hours into things that give you zero return. And then you're trying to do the things that actually matter with what's left over. And whatever's left over is never enough. Here's the practical shift. Identify the 3 things that drain you the most while producing the least. The scrolling, the email checking, the people-pleasing commitments, the performative business. Now disappoint them. Say no. Withdraw your energy. Let them be undone, unanswered, unattended. Not forever, just long enough to redirect that energy into the one thing that actually moves your life forward. You're not being selfish. You're being solvent. You're refusing to go bankrupt funding things that give you no return. And now a break from our sponsor, Miracle Grow. Let's be real. Everyone's feeling a little digitally distracted and time-starved lately. People are craving real connections and ways to unplug. And honestly, gardening is the ultimate way to do this. It isn't just about plants. It's about trading the digital noise for a quiet win. As you pour your energy into helping something grow, you're pouring a sense of calm and connection back into yourself too. Whether you're in an apartment or you've never even touched a shovel, don't let self-doubt stop you. With 75 years of expertise, Miracle Grow takes the stress out of the process and makes it pure joy. And here's the big secret. Most people think water and sunlight are enough, but your plants actually need more to truly thrive. Whether it's starting with the right soil foundation or giving plants the boost they need to stay vibrant with plant food, Miracle Grow has all the essentials to make growing simple and stress-free. Head to miraclegrow.com to check out all of their easy-to-use products and start your growth journey today. Truth number 5. The people you spend time with are not influencing you, they're programming you. You've heard the Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Everyone nods, nobody acts on it, because acting on it requires something brutal. Looking at your actual 5 people and honestly evaluating what they're programming into you. I say programming deliberately because it's not influence. Influence implies a conscious process, someone persuading you to think or act a certain way. What actually happens is far more invisible and far more powerful. Dr. James Fowler, in his landmark research published in the New England Journal of Medicine and expanded in his book Connected, demonstrated that behaviors, emotions, and even health outcomes spread through social networks like contagions. If a close friend becomes obese, your own likelihood of becoming obese increases by 45%. Not because they convinced you to eat more, but because their behavior unconsciously recalibrated your sense of what's normal. If a friend of a friend, someone you may not even know, gets divorced, your own likelihood of divorce increases. These effects ripple across 3 degrees of separation. Your environment is not a backdrop. It's an operating system, and the people in it are not passive characters. They're active inputs that are reshaping your neural pathways, your default behaviors, your ambition, and your sense of what's possible every single day without you being aware of it. The ancient texts understood this with striking precision. The Dharmapada, one of the oldest Buddhist texts, says, "An ignorant person is like a log of wood. If they associate with the wise, they become a flame. If they associate with the foolish, they remain a log." That's not poetry, it's neuroscience expressed in metaphor. Mirror neurons, first discovered by Dr. Rizzolatti and his team at the University of Parma, fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it. Your brain literally rehearses the behaviors it witnesses in others. You don't have to agree with what the people around you are doing. You don't have to admire it. Your brain will pattern match to it anyway. Here's the harsh truth. If your 5 closest people are comfortable, you will become comfortable. If they complain, you will complain. If they've stopped growing, you will stop growing. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And human brains sync to their environment with or without permission. And you don't have to leave them behind. If you start making better choices for yourself, you too can have a positive impact on everyone else. The most important decision of your 20s is not what career to pursue or who to date. It's who you allow into your daily environment. Curate it like your life depends on it, because neurologically, it does. Truth 6. Being busy is the laziest thing you can do. This one is going to make some people feel defensive. Good. Defensive usually means accurate. Busyness has become the default status symbol of our generation. How are you? Busy. Said with half a smile that kind of says, I'm important, I'm in demand, I'm doing things. We wear busyness like a medal, and we judge rest like a crime. But here's the truth that took me years to see. Being busy is easy. Terrifyingly easy. Anyone can fill a schedule. Anyone can reply to every email. attend every meeting, say yes to every request, maintain a to-do list so long it could wallpaper a house. Being busy requires no thought, no strategy, no prioritization, no courage. You just say yes to whatever shows up and call the exhaustion hard work. Being effective, actually moving the needle on the things that matter, is hard because it requires you to think, to choose, to say this matters and this doesn't, to disappoint people, to sit with the discomfort of an empty calendar and the terrifying question it produces. If I'm not busy, who am I? That question is the real reason we stay busy. Busyness is a hiding place. It keeps us from confronting the things we're avoiding, the relationship we need to fix, the career change we need to make, the creative work you keep saying you don't have time for. You don't have time for it because you've filled every available minute with low-value activity specifically so you can say you don't have time for it. The busyness is not the obstacle. The busyness is our false strategy. It's the most socially acceptable way to avoid your own life. Stop being busy and start being honest about what you're hiding from inside the busyness. Truth 7, you will not be rewarded for your suffering. This is the one I said would save me the most pain. This is the one we all resist, and I have too. Somewhere deep in your operating system, and I don't know exactly when it got installed, but I know it's there, is the belief that your suffering is an investment. That if you endure enough, sacrifice enough, push through enough pain, put yourself last enough times, that eventually the universe or life or God or something will notice and reward you. That there's a cosmic ledger keeping track of how much you've struggled, and at some points the balance comes due and you get what you've earned. This belief is ruining our lives, and it's invisible because it disguises itself as virtue. You stay in the job that's destroying your health because leaving feels like giving up. And you've been taught that giving up is the worst thing a person can do. You stay in the relationship that diminishes you because you've invested so many years, and walking away would mean all that suffering was for nothing. You deny yourself rest, pleasure, ease, and joy because somewhere in your programming is the message that those things are earned, not given, and you haven't earned them yet. This is what psychologists call the sunk cost fallacy, applied to your entire life. The tendency to continue investing in something because of how much you've already invested, regardless of whether the future return justifies it. Dr. Hal Arks and Dr. Catherine Bloomer's foundational research on sunk costs showed that this bias operates even when people are explicitly told that past investment is irrelevant to future outcomes. The brain can't let go of the suffering it's already paid, so it doubles down and then triples down and calls it perseverance. The Buddhist tradition is devastatingly clear on this. The Buddha identified upadana, attachment, clinging, as the mechanism that perpetuates suffering. And one of the most pernicious forms of clinging is clinging to suffering itself, clinging to the identity of the one who endures, clinging to the narrative that your pain has a purpose that will eventually be revealed. The Buddha didn't say suffering builds character. He said suffering is what happens when you cling. And the first thing most people cling to without realizing it is suffering itself. Because letting go of the suffering means admitting it might have been unnecessary. And that admission is almost too painful to bear. Here's the truth. Some suffering is unavoidable. Loss, grief, the genuine pain of being alive. We all have difficulties that we're going through. But the suffering we manufacture, the staying in things that aren't working, the tolerating of conditions you have the power to change, that is optional and we can change. Truth 8. Your 20s are not a rehearsal, they're a live performance, and the audience is your 30s. There's a lie your brain tells you in your 20s that is so comforting and so dangerous that it deserves its own truth on this list. The lie is, I have time. You do technically, statistically, probably, but I have time is not a fact you're operating from. It's a sedative you're taking. It's the thing you tell yourself so you can postpone the difficult decision for another month, delay the launch for another quarter, stay in the wrong city for another year, table the conversation for another day. I have time is the lie that transforms your 20s from a decade of building into a decade of intending. Now, I also don't want you to be at the opposite end where you put your pressure on yourself and you don't realize you do have time, right? That's unhealthy too. So the laziness, I have so much time, it doesn't matter, to, oh my God, every day counts and I'm old. Both of those are inaccurate. Here's what I wish someone had told me with enough force to actually land. Your 30s are not a new chapter. They're the consequences of your 20s. Every relationship you stayed in too long, every skill you didn't develop, every financial habit you didn't build, every hard truth you postponed, every morning you traded for a scroll, and every evening you traded for a binge. Those don't disappear at 30 because you want them to. They compound in the wrong direction. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. But compounding works on everything, not just money. Your habits compound, your knowledge compounds, your relationships compound, your health compounds. And here's what nobody tells you. The compounding curve is nearly invisible in your 20s. The difference between the person who reads for 30 minutes a day and the person who scrolls for 30 minutes a day is undetectable at 25. At 35, it's noticeable. At 45, it's a canyon. The ancient Indian concept of karma is grossly misunderstood in the West. It's not cosmic punishment. It's not what goes around comes around. In its original Vedantic context, karma simply means action. And the teaching is that every action creates a consequence, not as a moral judgment, but as natural law, like gravity. You don't get punished for jumping off a building. You just hit the ground. That's not justice, that's physics. Your 20s are when you're building the trajectory, the angle, the initial conditions. And because the results aren't visible yet, it feels like the angle doesn't matter. It does. A 1 degree difference in trajectory is invisible at 100 meters. At 1,000 miles, it's the difference between continents. This is not about panic. It's about respect. Respect for the decade you're in. Respect for the fact that the choices you're making right now, including the choice to postpone, to wait, to figure it out later, are not neutral. They are active. They're shaping a future you'll live in, whether you planned it or not. Truth 9. The relationship you have with yourself is the blueprint for every relationship you'll ever have. Every relationship problem you've ever had, every argument, every betrayal that cut too deep, every time you gave too much, every time you couldn't receive, every time you chose someone who was wrong for you and stayed anyway, was not only a relationship problem. It was a self-relationship problem that found a stage to be on. This sounds abstract until you see the machinery. If you don't trust yourself, your judgment, your instincts, your ability to survive hard things, you will attract people who reinforce that distrust. Not because the universe is conspiring against you, but because your tolerance for mistreatment is calibrated to your self-worth. You will accept from others what you believe you deserve. And what you believe you deserve was set long before this relationship began. Dr. Kristen Neff at the University of Texas at Austin has spent over 2 decades researching self-compassion and its effects on relationship, performance, and mental health. Her findings are unambiguous. People with higher self-compassion have healthier relationships, set better boundaries, recover faster from conflict, and are less likely to stay in harmful dynamics. Not because they're selfish, but because they have a baseline of internal regard that prevents them from outsourcing their sense of worth to someone else. Here's the mechanism. If you don't give yourself approval, if your self-worth is contingent on external validation, then every relationship becomes an approval-seeking mission. You don't show up as a partner, you show up as an applicant, performing, auditioning, trying to earn a feeling that you should be generating internally. And the person across from you can feel it. They feel the weight of being your source. Some people will exploit that. Some will try to fill the role and burn out. Neither dynamic is love. Both are transactions. The Sufi poet Rumi, before Instagram turned him into a greeting card, wrote, "You wander from room to room looking for the diamond necklace that is already around your neck." Your 20s will likely be a decade of wandering from person to person, looking for them to give you the feeling of being enough. They can't give it to you. It's already yours. It's been yours the entire time, but no one modeled that for you, so you keep searching for it in other people. Something that can be found in yourself. Truth 10. You will not figure out your life. You will build it, and it will look nothing like the plan. You'll get to where you want in life, just not in the way you imagine it. This is the last one because it's the one that holds all the others together. You are currently trying to figure out your life, and the effort feels like it's destroying you. Because figuring out your life implies that your life is a puzzle, that all the pieces exist somewhere right now, and your job is to find them, put them in the right order right now, and reveal the picture on the box. Once you find the right career, the right partner, the right city, the right purpose, click, 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 the picture will appear and you'll finally feel settled. That's not how it works. It's never worked that way for anyone who has ever lived. And the belief that it should is the single greatest source of anxiety in your 20s. Dr. Ibarra at London Business School has studied career transitions and identity formation for decades. Her research shows that people who successfully reinvent themselves do not do it through introspection and planning. They do it through action and experimentation. Here's my 4-step system. Experience. Take action, do things, try things, make mistakes. When you experience things, experience leads to competence. You develop skills. You learn things. You learn lessons. Competence leads to evidence. Once you can do things again and again and go through challenges with that competence, you get evidence of what's possible. And that evidence leads to confidence. We think we start at confidence. You start at experience, then you get competence, then you get evidence, and then you build confidence. You try things, you have experiences that surprise you, you stumble into interests that you didn't predict. The self is not discovered through thinking. It's discovered through doing and then thinking. And the person you become at 35 will be shaped by things that haven't happened to you yet, things you cannot plan for, predict, or control. The ancient Taoist concept of the uncarved block captures this beautifully. The uncarved block represents pure potential before it has been shaped by expectation, definition, or limitation. Your 20s are the uncarved block. And the worst thing you can do is carve it into a fixed shape too early based on incomplete information, external pressure, and the desperate need to have an answer to, so what's the plan? You don't need a plan. You need a practice of paying attention to what makes you come alive and doing more of it. A practice of noticing what drains you and doing less of it. A practice of following curiosity even when it leads somewhere that doesn't make sense on a resume. A practice of allowing your life to be built iteratively through lived experience rather than designed theoretically through anxious planning. Your life will not go according to plan. And that's not a warning. It's a promise. And it's the best news you'll hear all day. Because the plan you're clinging to was based on who you were when you made it. And you're not that person anymore. You're not the person you were when you started this video. Every experience, every failure, every surprise, every heartbreak, every late night conversation that changed your mind about something you thought you were certain about, all of it is carving the block. And the shape that's emerging is more interesting, more beautiful, more complex than anything you could have designed from scratch. Stop trying to figure out your life in 1 year. Start building it brick by brick, one honest decision at a time, one brave conversation at a time, one day of doing the thing that matters, not the thing that's urgent, expected, or that people want you to do. The plan is not the point, the practice is the point. And the practice is simple, even when it's hard. Stay curious, stay honest, stay building. The life that's waiting for you on the other side of your 20s isn't the one you planned. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope it helped. I hope you'll share it with a friend or family member who needs it. And I can't wait to see you here on the next one. I hope that these 10 truths allow you to break through some serious barriers in your life and create the shift you're looking for. Hey everyone, if you loved that conversation, go and check out my episode with the world's leading therapist, Lori Gottlieb.
You are exactly where you need to be if you are doing the work. If you're not doing the work, you're going to be behind. If you are not in a place where you want to be with a relationship, you have to understand why.